What's up, investors? It's the Russian dude. There was a moment when Vladimir Putin thought he could beef up his forces with a bold, almost theatrical move, inviting up to 12,000 North Korean soldiers to join the fight in Ukraine. This was supposed to look like a demonstration of powerful alliances, a reminder that Russia still had friends, or at least partners, who could bolster its wavering offensives. But as with so many of Putin's plans, the results are dismal. What was meant to be a dramatic turnaround has evolved into humiliating defeat, both for the Russian military and for the North Koreans, who walked straight into Kursk defense lines. An entire battalion of at least 500 soldiers was reportedly eliminated in just under 48 hours, which only once again confirms that the meaninglessness of this deal between Putin and Kim Jong-un, the growing despair among North Korean ranks, and the upcoming change of heart of those still fighting. In a desperate attempt to get back territory lost to Ukraine's clever counterattack in Kursk, Putin welcomed North Korean troops into the fight. It was hailed as some grand gesture of solidarity, with the Kremlin bragging about how it now had official foreign soldiers, not just paying guns for hire, stepping onto the battlefield. And don't forget that before that, the Putin's administration was rattling its nuclear saber, saying, "Don't you dare Western soldiers to even set foot on Russian soil. This will be seen as the declaration of war and the beginning of the Third World War." And now, Putin does exactly that. Because apparently for him, when Russia does it to protect its own land, it's different. But anyways, the idea seemed simple enough. North Korea sends its so-called elite Storm Corps soldiers in exchange for oil, military secrets, and whatever other deals Kim Jong-un managed to get out of Moscow. From Putin's perspective, the mere presence of these foreign allies was meant to signal a broader coalition supporting the special military operation. He likely believed that new faces, new uniforms and new bodies will revitalize his poor efforts. Except, it did nothing. Shortly after setting foot on Russian-Ukrainian soil, the North Koreans were thrown into raging battles in Kursk, where Russia had already lost almost 500 square miles of territory and close to 100 settlements. Far from intimidating Ukrainian defenders, these fresh arrivals found themselves outmatched and outmaneuvered. Ukrainian troops dug in, refusing to give up an inch, and proved that Kursk was hardly the place for undertrained, malnourished foreign soldiers to shine. In just 2 days, reportedly, according to one of the most recent Zelensky's reports, an entire battalion of 500 to 1,000 plus North Korean fighters was wiped off the map. A crushing blow that would send shockwaves through the Kremlin's propaganda machine and leave Kim Jong-un fuming about the fate of these elite forces. That's also assuming he cared about those people, which most likely he didn't. Having the entire country under your control and millions of lives at your disposal turns these 500 into just statistics, a mere accounting error when compiling a new report of population growth and decline. Kursk has been a particularly hot zone since Ukraine's surprise counteroffensive in August 2024, which left the Russians so shocked and confused that they were forced to scramble wherever they could to retake the lost ground at all costs. Spoiler alert, they couldn't, and a big chunk of Kursk region is still under Ukrainian control. Putin poured in about 50,000 soldiers, determined to recover a region that once looked secure in Russian hands. Then he started throwing North Korean troops into the mix, presumably hoping for some miraculous synergy between his own struggling paratroopers and newly arrived forces from Pyongyang. Instead, communication collapsed almost instantly. A language barrier separated these soldiers so severely that even the simplest tactical coordination became chaotic. Reports from Ukrainian sources indicate that entire groups of Russian and North Korean fighters ended up in disarray, sometimes stumbling into the line of fire, including friendly fire, and failing to mount any meaningful defense. In fact, with the arrival of North Koreans, Russian defense is much more weaker than before, because previously there was some sort of communication and order. Even though the numbers were fewer, there was an organized defense, which is obviously much better than having thousands new soldiers coming in, disrupting peace and order, creating chaos, not knowing what to do, and then even accidentally revealing secret positions to Ukrainians, and just in general undermining the preparedness of the Russian army. And now this very same Russian army had to switch their attention to teaching and literally babysitting these North Koreans, rather than focusing on repelling Ukrainian attacks. The result has been staggering losses. Before the North Koreans even joined frontline assaults, Russia had already suffered more than 38,000 casualties in Kursk region alone. Now that Pyongyang's soldiers are actively engaged, the body count is skyrocketing. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky confirmed that the entire North Korean battalion was eliminated near a village called Makhnovka. It is unclear for obvious reasons due to state secrets whether that battalion represented 500 or 1000 plus soldiers, but either way, it is an enormous chunk of the troops Kim sent to help Putin. And according to the most recent information from Ukrainian side, specifically the report that came out 2 days ago from the moment of recording this video, a total of more than 1,000 is now KIA, and 4,000 are taken out of battles either temporarily or indefinitely. That's roughly a third of the entire force they initially deployed. If there was a plan to use these soldiers efficiently, well, it looks like that nobody told the Russian generals of these plans, nobody sent them the memo. So they have decided to rely on human wave tactics reminiscent of the First and the Second World Wars. The logical end for North Korean troops stems from more than just incompetent Russian command. The soldiers themselves, widely branded as elite Storm Corps, are underfed and lack the training to survive modern warfare. I mean, yeah, breaking concrete bricks with your bare hands will not help you survive against the drone, goes without saying. No matter how loud and excited Kim Jong-un was clapping when watching these athletic performances. Defectors who served in the Storm Corps have painted even a bleaker picture. Minimal actual experience, diets of moldy cabbage mixed with corn, and a chain of command more focused on maintaining fear and loyalty than on forging real combat skills. Later on, it even started to look like that Russian commanders gave up on North Koreans completely. It takes so much time and effort to teach them everything and train them that some started using these soldiers the way they see fit, with as little obstacles towards their commanding routines as possible. If they are to perish in another assault doing nothing, so be it. I will not waste my time training them, I better focus on those who at least understand Russian language. Some of these commanders most likely said, or at least they thought about it. Propaganda videos from Pyongyang may show soldiers as superhumans, but that's a far cry from the demands of an artillery and drone-heavy conflict right now going in eastern Ukraine. When forced to confront well-equipped defenders who have spent years perfecting their tactics, these Storm Corps recruits crumble like novices facing veterans, which essentially they are. But to their credit, that is not to say they are completely, entirely defenseless. Every human being will fight with passion and determination and uncover some hidden talents and powers when his or her life is in danger. Some Western officials reported that early on, Russian commanders kept these North Koreans behind the lines or assigned them to secondary positions, sensing that they were not prepared for the frontline combat. But desperation pushed them closer and closer to the actual assaults, culminating in the fiasco at Kursk. And as if malnourishment and lack of proper firearms training were not enough, these forces also face impossible moral dilemmas. Many fear being captured because returning home alive or even surrendering could invite brutal retribution against their families in North Korea. Some have reportedly decided to cease to exist rather than face the uncertainty of Ukrainian captivity or the wrath of Kim Jong-un. Little did they know, they should have chosen surrendering to Ukrainians. Even if we believe the Russian propaganda, even though we don't, which says that there is nothing worse than being a prisoner of war in Ukraine, that is still much better than sitting in trenches and listening to commands you do not understand, or coming back home to North Korea labeled as traitor. It is not even selecting between bad and worse, it is selecting between the worst and the worst. It is clear that Putin will not back down from his goals to retake Kursk, no matter how many of Kim's or Russian soldiers are sacrificed in the process. For the Kremlin, the North Koreans are disposable cannon fodder. absorbing Ukrainian attacks so that Russia's slightly more competent troops can retain their munitions and morale. And meanwhile, Pyongyang benefits from a steady flow of resources to prop up its regime. Kim is gambling that the potential rewards, financial, political and material, outweigh the staggering loss of life his forces are suffering. And once again, that's giving him the benefit of a doubt and assuming he actually cares about these young boys. I guess you pretty much know the answer. Some analysts suggest that North Korea is willing to send thousands more soldiers into the conflict, which could push their total deployment upwards of 40,000 in the near future. That means the recent decimation of a battalion might not even put a dent in Pyongyang's willingness to roll the dice again. But the question remains, will these people be capable of doing anything, or is it the very same destiny awaits them as well? Will they even know about what happened to their previous wave of comrades? It is actually curious to hear what the North Korean propaganda tells its people about the ongoing war in Ukraine and why it has to send their own soldiers. Who knows? Maybe the TVs, radio broadcasts and newspapers tell a completely different story. Like the one that Russia is winning. North Korea came to their rescue at a perfect timing. Putin is now forever indebted to Kim Jong-un. And America trembles in fear, ready to surrender Alaska, maybe part of Hawaii, just so Putin and Kim stops threatening them with nukes. However crazy and ridiculous this might sound, if there is only one country in the entire world that is capable of delivering this level of propaganda, it is without a doubt North Korea. Ukraine's leadership in the meantime is urging China to use its influence over North Korea, hoping Beijing will pressure Kim to hold the deployment of more troops. But China appears more interested in biding its time than in taking any clear stance. If Beijing does speak up, it will likely do so only when it sees a direct threat to its own interests. Or maybe when the outcome of war will be very obvious, either in Putin's favor or not. Highly unlikely China will stay as Russia's partner if things start to get south. I doubt they would want to be dragged down with them. But until then, Putin keeps plunging deeper into an unwinnable war, and Kim sees an opportunity to profit from the chaos by trading his soldiers for oil and weapon technology. Well, there you have it, guys. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe to my channel for more videos like this. We are very close to 250,000. Let's get this number over the weekend. If you wish to support my work, there are links down below, for example my Patreon, where there are additional chapters, ridiculous Russian propaganda. If you still remember these funny little chapters. And these subscriptions to Patreon is one of the best way to support my work. Once again, the link is down below. Thanks so much for watching. See you on Tuesday.
We won't succumb to their tricks, the facade they try to sell. Their twisted words and feeble claims on us all they cannot quell. We see through their lies, their feeble attempts to sway. We do not believe